Today we're going to step outside the boundaries and we'll be talking about conventional baits rigged in unconventional ways. And I'm not talking about gimmicks, I'm talking about purpose-driven modifications. We'll walk through some strategic changes with hook pairings and weight distributions, and all of these modifications can be done on baits you already have in your arsenal. We're simply going to re-engineer them to perform at a higher level. Bait modifications, that's what we're talking about today, and I'd like to start off by just saying that sometimes it's not about finding something new, it's about understanding what you already have and modifying it to meet your situations, your applications. That's what I really want the message to be in this video. Now, let's talk about modifications in general. There's two ways that you can modify a bait. One of them is a physical modification. That's simply, maybe changing the color, changing the size. If you have a plastic bait, it could be cutting off appendages. If you have a wood bait, it could be carving the bait, but you are physically changing the way that bait functions. That's the first modification, a physical modification. The second modification would be due to technique. So you're either fishing the bait faster, you're fishing it slower, you're twitching it, you're letting it get deeper, so on and so forth. So two ways that we modify baits, physically and through technique. And I want you to really think about that, because as we talk about these modifications, we want to pair the physical modification up with the technique modification. And sometimes when you alter the way a bait functions physically, it will not work using the same technique that it did before you modified it. When you modify these baits and you pair them up with technique, they'll not only catch more fish, but here's the key: they will open up a bait like the Zoom Horny Toad, which originally was meant to just be a topwater bait, and they'll open up the scope on where you can fish these and how you can fish them. You'll be able to take these previously topwater baits, you'll still be able to fish them in the heavy cover like what's behind us here, throw them out, but when they get to that hole, because it's a weighted version, it'll drop into that hole and you'll be able to get under the vegetation. You'll be able to fish these more like a crankbait, where you can throw them out and just reel them in or pop them in. You'll be able to adjust the depth that they ride at, because you're going to be changing the weight that you, not only the weight distribution, but the weight that goes, the size of the weight that goes in these things. So it not only opens up the number of fish that you'll catch, but you can use these baits for more of a searching bait, because it opens up the scope of where you can fish them. Open water, top water, deep, shallow, so on and so forth. So think about that as we talk about these bait modifications. Here we go. I'll start off with a hook that I'm using more and more. It's called the BKK hook. And don't think that I am sponsored by BKK. I'm not getting anything from BKK, but I do like their hooks, and I like the BKK because they have a wide variety hooks. So here are the three hooks we'll be talking about. Then we'll set up some baits and we'll talk about why they work and why we're setting them up. The first hook that we will talk about is just a standard unweighted BKK screw lock hook. It's kind of a, we'll put it up here, it's kind of a hook that has, it's a hybrid in between a extra wide gap hook and an inline worm hook. That's what we have here. This is the unweighted version. They have a weighted version, which is called the Permalock weighted BKK hook, and it's the same thing, except for this being a screw lock, it's a weighted type of, it's a weight, and it's got some little arms on it, and it works really good to hold the baits on, but this is the weighted BKK hook. And last but not least, here's a BKK hook that has, and I think they call this a tandem driver or something. This is their version of the underspin. So they have three different hooks, all kind of the same hook, but a little different weight distribution and flash to them. All right, so now we have those three hooks, and we're going to talk about let's start with the horny toad. We'll talk about how we originally fished that and how it's evolved for my fishing, and how this whole concept is going to hopefully open up your eyes to, you know, working with the baits that you have. So here we have the, let's see, the original horny toad that was meant to basically put on an inline worm hook, or a maybe a extra wide gap hook. And we just basically took these things, put them on the hook, and rigged them weedless. Doing it real quick here. And this is what we had. And this is a great topwater bait, but it is a topwater bait. Caught a lot of fish for me during the day. I think Travis Huckabee was the first guy that I talked to that was actually weighting the head of these, and what he was doing is he's putting a sliding sinker, basically a like you would run a T-rig, and he put a stopper on this. So it weighted the thing, and it helped to get it down deeper. Now, what did that do? Why was that, just putting a simple weight in front of this, why was that such a big deal? Because now this is not only a topwater bait that you can run across the surface and get surface strikes, you can throw it into heavy cover still with that, I'll say 1/8 ounce weight on here. You can still throw it through the cover, but when you got to a hole or something, you'd pop it to that hole and let it drop down, and now you could fish subsurface between you know, in the holes, in the little mats that you would be fishing. And a lot of times I don't think, it's kind of like punching a topwater bait. A lot of fish just didn't see these, and the fish reacted to them. You could also take this bait and fish it in open water, because as it came through the vegetation and it got into the open water, you can let it drop down a little bit and fish it subsurface. That opened up a ton of opportunities, and caught a lot of fish for me. And every time I talk about this, I feel like I have to give Travis Huckabee all the credit on that. Now, where I'm going to start to take some credit is a few years after I talked to Travis and I had been fishing it like this, and I forget what the circumstances was, but I basically was changing out stuff, and I think I had an underspin on. Standard underspin, and I had some of my old horny toads on the bottom of the boat, and I decided that I would put an underspin on the horny toad, just like this. When I did that, again, it took it from a topwater bait, good topwater bait, adding a little weight to the nose, a better bait, and then when I put this thing on an underspin, it turned it into an extraordinary bait. I started catching fish right away, and I've been using it ever since. Now, what has this done? It's given it more weight. You can cast it farther. You can still pull it across the top water. You can skip it across the top of the water in open water. But you can take this thing, and depending on the weight that you use, you can drop it down to any depth you want. In the Delta, generally I'm fishing this in 2 to 4 feet of water, so I only need, you know, an 1/8 or 1/4 ounce of weight on it. But if you're fishing a lake or somewhere where you've got to get down 10 or 12 feet, you can adjust the size of the weight on this. And once again, we talked about not only catching more fish, but this went from a bait that I was only throwing basically in the top water vegetation, to a bait that I throw all over the place. And it just opened up the scope of where I can throw it, and it made this a searching bait. It made me a lot more efficient, because now I'm using a bait like this, I'm fishing some topwater stuff, and then all of a sudden I have a break in the bank or something, and I've got 20 or 30 feet where there's no topwater vegetation. I don't pick up another rod. I'll use this and I'll just fish it as a crankbait. I'll let it go down to the bottom, I'll rip it along the bottom, whatever the case may be. It just opened up a whole new avenue to fish this thing. Let's do this first of all. We've got this hook here, and that's our standard hook that we weighted it on, just a standard worm hook. Now the way that I weight this, instead of putting a weight in front of it, I'll use these Permalock hooks like this. So what I do here is just simply insert the weight into the front of the bait. I'll do this real quick. And again, I might not get this exactly right, but we're going to do it quickly. I'm doing this. And now I've got the same weighted bait, but no weight on top. The weight's here. What does that do? It doesn't allow this thing to drop like this. It drops more at an angle like this. Now, if I stop it, it will drop down into holes still, but this is made it much more weedless because the weight's inside. It gives you a different look to the bait as it's pulling through the water. It's not pulling through like this, it's pulling through like this, more like a small fish. And right now I'll show you just a few baits that this Permalock hook works really well with. The weighted Permalock hook, we'll pull this out. You can obviously use this hook on a paddle tail swim bait like a Kitech. You can, here's a flashy swimmer, or excuse me, is this a flashy swimmer? What do they call this? A spark shad, Megabass spark shad. This is a great little bait that I use, you know, when I'm trying to imitate other bait fish. A curly tail worm would fish with this, pulled right along the bottom. This gives it enough weight to where it's totally weedless. You can put it along the bottom. You can pop it up. Works great. Here's another one, the brush hog. This works great with this hook here, and again, pull it along the bottom, pop it into holes, whatever you're doing. And then the Sakamata shad, basically everyone's using this for a forward-facing sonar minnow imitation. The depth Sakamata shad. Check this out if you're not already using it. You can take this Permalock hook and put it in here. Didn't get this real straight, but there you have the shad. There's no weight, no ball head in front. It's totally weedless, or you can make this with an exposed hook. But what you have now is the weight here. So for you guys that are doing forward-facing sonar, instead of having this bait drop like this, it's going to drop like this. And as it's pulled through the water, it's going to go more like a bait fish. Hopefully this is opening up your eyes to some of the things, how we're talking about opening up the scope of how this is fished. Let's talk about one last thing that I've been doing, and that is taking the Crush City Bronco bug and using it on an underspin. And this is the BKK underspin, and you notice this BKK, the underspin has a very wide gap. So when something comes up on here and grabs it, even a thicker bait, you've got a wide enough gap hook for that fish to come up and actually get hooked. And I'm telling you, I never would have put an underspin on this type of bait if I hadn't had the history with that Horny Toad. What this allows me to do is throw this bait way up into vegetation or cover, pull it through, and it's really pretty weedless. It'll pull through, and I can drop it in the holes, especially around wood, and drop this thing in here. And it's almost like pitching a jig in there. It'll go in, it's weedless, but you've got this little flashy swimmer. So when you pop it, it's going to fall at a different level, it's going to pop up, it's going to have some spin, it's going to have some noise and vibration, and that is something that fish just don't see very often in heavy cover. This also allows me to throw out, make a long cast, it drops down to the bottom, and I pop it, drop it, pop it, drop it. I think that's a technique that Mike Iaconelli did. He really fished jigs fast. One of the things that I was doing years ago that I did not know I was doing was hover strolling. When you're using that underspin, whether you're using it with a Bronco bug or a Horny Toad, you will catch a lot more fish by not just reeling in. You'll cast this thing out and you will reel and twitch just like this, and you'll see this thing, the tails and the underspin will almost act in unison. And it's kind of, you'll have to do it. It's easy to do. Once you set this up, throw it out, reel it in straight. The next cast, throw it in and reel it in, watch it, watch it, watch it, and then just start twitching it like this. And you'll see that thing, it's almost like twitching a spinnerbait or something. It opens up and it just really attracts a lot more fish to whatever bait you're going to use, especially if it has tails on it like the little horny toad or this Crush City Bronco bug. They just kind of, it does something to the bait. So that's kind of a hover strolling for bottom bouncing baits, I guess you'll call it. Some of the other advantages of that bait are that it is going to, obviously it's going to cast great because it doesn't have a lot of things bouncing off of it. If you have to go in and start pitching this bait under docks and skipping it, the baits with this internal hook like this, boy, they pitch wonderfully, they cast further, they, I think, give you a better profile of how that bait comes through the water. And if you're using bottom bouncing techniques, instead of having the bait, let's see, what do we have here? Instead of having this bait, you know, hooked to a jig head or something like this where it's pulling across the bottom like this, it's pulling across at more of a level surface. So it becomes more weedless coming through the weeds, and it doesn't get hung up quite as much if you're pulling it along the bottom. Now I have an underspin here, but generally we would be using this guy here with no underspin for a bottom bouncing application. So, you know, I've tried to condense this as much as I can, and I know I've said a lot and it might be a little fuzzy, but hopefully you guys get the idea of what we're doing. If you have a question, hit me up in the comments and I will do my absolute best to answer it. If by some reason I miss it, hit me that same question up in a couple of days. Sometimes I get busy and I miss one, but I'll get back to you and see if we can clear up whatever question you have. And with that, I just want to thank you guys for watching. Go out and give these baits a try. Let me know how you like them. If you come up with something great, let me know so I can start using it and we can all start catching more fish. Thanks a lot. We'll see you guys on the river. Good luck.